Hi everyone, I am back and today I'm trying out a new craft kit that I've got. Now a week or two ago, I'm not quite sure when the video will be out, I have tried out a Terrazzo kit and that was just plaster of Paris, but now I've tried this different one which has resin in it and I want to see if the results are just a little bit different, so let's get stuck in. So first off, let's see what we get in the box. So it looks like what we have is this base, which I'm quite happy to see is by weight, and this time I will do my best to actually use the right ratios. But I'm not actually entirely sure what this is made of, but we'll see if it acts any different from the plaster of Paris. We've also got way more sandpaper than the last kit gave us, and there's quite a few sheets in here, and I assume that they're different grits, so that's exactly what I was missing in the last kit. This, which appears to be sort of mixing or scraping sort of utensil, but probably super easy to clean, so that's handy. A measuring cup. I'm not sure how useful this will be considering it's done by weight, but it saves me having to get a spoon dirty. We've got 3 moulds, this sort of cute heart-shaped one, this flower or sort of splodgy one, and then this larger sort of round tray with a bobbly border. We've got 2 pairs of gloves, and these are sort of the cheaper gloves compared to the previous kit, but the last kit only gave us 1 pair, and as it was a multi-stage process I thought they should give us more than 1, so that's also a win. And we've got 5 dyes in this kit. The previous one only had 3, I think it was red, yellow and green, so in here we have red, yellow, blue, I think this is a black and a green, but we can find that out. And 2 cups which conveniently have measurements on the side. Again, I'm not sure how useful that will be if we're doing it by weight. Obviously a milliliter of water is 1 gram, but I'm not sure about this base. So I already had an idea of what I wanted to make this time, and I thought that this mould would be good for a coaster, but it is actually just way too big really for a coaster, and these other ones are too small. So I went ahead and ordered some moulds, which they were advertised as resin moulds, but I think they're exactly the same, and this is a resin based kit, so it should be fine. And it's got a coaster holder and 4 coasters, and that's what I'm going to try and make today. So this kit does not have separate instructions, but the instructions are on the back of this base pack. So I think I'm just going to mix up sort of 1 lot of this and see how far it gets us. I want to do that two-toned effect again with these coasters, so I'll put a picture on the screen just so that you know what I mean. So the first step will actually be to make 1 of each of the 2 colours that I want to use, and then we'll break that in half, and then we'll end up with 4 coasters which each have 50-50 sort of the two-tone effect. It will become more obvious once I get into it. For now I'm just going to follow the recipe and try to do my best to stick to the ratios this time, and then yeah, I'll try and colour using the pigments they provided. It does actually tell you what other pigments you can use, like mica powder and acrylic pigment. Not suitable for resin pigment, so that is an issue I had last time when I did some experimenting, and it's good that this tells you outright and gives you some other options if you don't like the colours that they've given you. But I'm going to try and use what's in the kit apart from the moulds, and we'll see how we get on. And it looks quite similar to the plaster of Paris, but I'm not quite sure how it is different. I might do a bit of research and possibly do a voiceover during this time lapse if I find out. So after some research I could not find a definitive answer as to what goes into Resincrete. It might vary by brand, but it's definitely got some kind of additive to the gypsum base which makes it stronger, more heat resistant and gives it a longer working time. If you have any more information, please let me know in the comments below. So after filling up a coaster mould, any extra Resincrete was spread thinly on a plastic sheet, and this will make the Jesmonite chips for later. I was aiming for a forest green and a burnt orange colour, but unfortunately the dyes in this kit were not getting me close to the shades that I wanted. So I tried adding some mica powder, which the instructions said can be used, and this got me closer to the shade I wanted, but it still seems to be difficult getting vivid colours in this craft. If you know how, then please comment below, but it might just be a limitation of the materials. And then I just repeat the steps with the orange to make one coaster of each colour. We'll leave these to set for 30 minutes. It says wait 30 minutes to demold, so I'll see you back here then and we'll see what results we get. And then we'll snap these, put them into these, pour the other half with some chips, and hopefully end up with a nice sort of matching set of coasters. So it's been a little bit over half an hour. I'm slightly concerned that the colour doesn't appear sort of even all the way through, but let's demold this and see what it looks like. So this side is definitely darker. I don't know if that's because it hasn't fully dried or if the mic has maybe floated to that side, but either way I think I'll use this for the top of the coaster. Because that is quite close to the colour I was going for. Maybe the same's happened with the orange, we can find out. Yeah, so the underside is definitely a little bit lighter than the bottom was. What do you think of these colours together? I was going for a forest green and a burnt orange like I said, and the green is pretty close to what I wanted. The orange is a bit further away, but I ran out of orange mica and adding the dyes didn't seem to be doing exactly what I wanted it to do. But now comes the part where we have to snap these in half so that we can use half of them in those moulds. I might need to recruit help for this, bear with me. So I got the help of an adult and now they are broken in half. This kit definitely seems stronger than the Plaster of Paris kit, because the Plaster of Paris kit I could easily snap myself, so these definitely seem like they're going to be a bit more durable. So what I'm going to do now is mix up some more of the base, just leave it white. Actually first I'll turn these into chips, then mix up some of the base, mix in the chips and reposition these back into their moulds. With the darker side down because that's the colour that I want to be the top, although probably doesn't really matter as long as they seem to fit snugly. So they might actually need to go in the way that they were to fit nicely actually, so. But the bottom can still actually be the top when you have it as the coaster. So we had two whole ones, one orange and one green. Now we have 4 halves so that each one of these coaster moulds gets a half, and then the other half will be a white base with some speckled chips in. So I'm going to go ahead, make these into chips, make the base. I'm going to try and make the coaster holder white with the speckles as well. I'm just going to go ahead and clean off this mica powder first, and I'll go to time lapse and you'll all see it happen way quicker than it does for me. I tried my first attempt at ASMR, so enjoy the sound of this cracking Resincrete. The chips were pretty difficult to make because the Resincrete is so strong, but eventually I was happy with how many chips I had, so I mixed up the white base. I mixed the smaller chips into the white base and placed a few of the larger chips into the moulds to make sure that every coaster would have some of each colour. I then poured over the liquid mixture and left it to set. I did end up having to make a second and third batch of the white base, but luckily I had kept back enough chips to mix into them. So that was a little bit more hectic than I thought it would be, but that always happens. I will say that I haven't managed to get these sort of flush at the top, so they will definitely need sanding to make them flat. I'm hoping because these are a bit stronger I'll be able to use a power tool, but we know how that went last time. It broke. So I think I'll see how these turn out. Hopefully they won't need too much sanding. These coasters are quite good because they're flat on both sides, so I can just sand them pretty easily. And yeah, I'll be back in another half an hour to demold these and see what the initial results are like. So it's been another half an hour. These look set now. It's definitely not quite flush. The white side is definitely a little bit taller, but it has connected quite well, I think. So let's demold and see what the flat side looks like. Okay, so where I have put the big chips, you obviously can see them, but it has led to a little ridge, and the join's a little ridge, so I'm going to have to sand all around, but we kind of expected that. I can definitely feel the moisture still in this side, unlike this side, so I will leave it to dry overnight at least before I try and sand it. But I'm slightly concerned that I'm not sure how well this shows on camera, but there is a slight sort of gap here. I'm hoping it's just where there's an overlap, and when I sand it down it will be flush, but let's go ahead and unmold the others. Yeah, I'm happy with the speckling on this one. I think it shows for a lot more than the plaster of Paris one did, and when you sand it down it will show up even more than that. I did notice that on this darker side of green the mica is coming off a bit, so I do think it's just where the mica's floated to the top, but if I'm sanding it down that'll be sorted out anyway. So I'm kind of getting like Christmas pudding vibes from these. I don't know if anyone else or just me. This is probably the flattest one so far. Obviously here where there's not a clean line, it's because the white is sort of overlapped slightly, but that should be fine once we sand it. And now I'm a bit worried about how this is going to come out the mould, because this, as I said, is a resin mould. So we'll see if this is strong enough to withstand coming out of this mould. I think the plaster of Paris version of this kit would probably have struggled and potentially broken. I went around the mould trying to loosen it and sort of jimmy the Resincrete out without breaking it, and I seem to be making progress, but then I've broken it. It's too tight in this mould, I think. Or maybe I wasn't careful enough trying to get it out, but I think it is fixable. If I can get all these pieces out. Ooh. Yeah, I think we could fix this if I mix together some more plaster and then hold it in place and then sand it back. I think that'll be fine. There's a few voids and things where air's got trapped anyway, so I'll probably fix this up maybe now while these others are drying anyway, and figure out a way to hold it in place. But let's use this as a learning experience. I mixed up some more Resincrete to use as sort of glue, and it held itself together pretty well. I made sure to coat all the edges in Resincrete so that when I sand it back there wouldn't be any telltale voids, and I used my finger as a paintbrush to make sure that all the cracks were covered over. Then I put it to one side and hoped for the best. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out from a first look, but we'll see at the end. And you'll probably now be cutting to me having a sanding montage. I tried hand sanding on my desk, but eventually did use a power tool to get the bulk of it off, and there were no breakages. I then used a piece of sandpaper adhered to a mirror to get a flat finish, working my way through several grits until I was happy with that they were all flat. You can see here that when sanding the coaster would go paler, and then any darker bits meant that that face wasn't flat because the darker bits weren't getting sanded. I did some research into the best coating to finish them, and found that this spray-on varnish should do the trick. It needed quite a few coats, and the coasters seemed to stay a little bit sticky when they were stacked, so please leave your recommendations below as I'd love to find a better finishing varnish. here's how they turned out. I'm pretty happy with the results. The coaster holder doesn't look perfect, but I think the fix worked well. I really enjoyed this craft and will definitely be making more coasters in future. This Resincrete seems easier to work with, and in my opinion gives a much better, stronger result than the Plaster of Paris kit, so I would definitely recommend trying it out. I'll leave a link to the kit I used in the description below. I hope you liked this video, and if so, it would really mean a lot to me if you'd consider subscribing. I'm hoping to grow my channel to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and all of your support means the world to me. Hope to see you again soon.